He was such a multifaceted person. He loved people, he loved his family, he loved books, but he was an outdoorsman. That's the kind of thing that attracts me. There are many people who are very outdoorsy, and there are many people who are very bookish. And quite often they're in two different worlds. But Theodore Roosevelt was the person who brought his books with him when he went to Africa. He had a huge suitcase full of books called the Pigskin Library. And so that's one thing that fascinates me about Theodore Roosevelt.
Submarines. And the story about that, which relates to right here, the Navy had been experimenting with submarines, sort of, since the Civil War. But nobody had really done much of a job with it. And if you looked at some of the drawings or photographs or whatever, those old submarines, you'd be amazed. One of them had pedals in it like a bicycle. You were supposed to do that. But in any case, the Navy had finally managed to come up with a more or less serviceable submarine. It was the first Navy SSN-1 or SS-1. They gave it the name, which always strikes me as really weird. The name was the Plunger. I don't know if I'd like to be on the Plunger, but in any case, the prototype was towed up here by a Navy tug called the Apache, which I thought TR probably would have liked that name. And she was right out here. And TR decided he wanted to go out and visit her. But it was a really stormy day. There was a northeaster blowing, really blowing, and the Secret Service wouldn't let him go out. Well, TR often didn't pay much attention to the Secret Service, so when they weren't looking, he snuck down to the beach and rowed out to the Plunger. Now, don't think of a submarine like the big boomers today. This one was something like 45 feet long. And when you see the picture of it, you see it looks like a submarine with a conning tower, but there's a man standing in it who's bigger than the conning tower. So it almost looks like a toy. He rowed out to it, and the captain must have been rather startled when the president appeared out of the storm and demanded to be driven around it. In fact, he wanted to drive it, and he wanted it to dive. So they dove several times. He drove all about this very experimental submarine. And he survived the experience. He came back up. He was so impressed, and submariners will tell you this, he was so impressed that he declared that all submariners, when they're on active duty on submarines, would be paid hazardous duty pay, extra pay. And that's true right up to today. So he's very popular amongst the submarine people. He wrote to Henry Cabot Lodge, a senator, a very good friend of his, that the reason he did this was he didn't want the American sailors, the American sailors, to think that he was asking them to do something that he wasn't willing to do. And so that's why he went down in the boat. Well, that's a nice story, but I suspect that the real reason, as another friend of his said, you know, if you really want to understand the president, you got to understand that he's only 5 years old. Every 5-year-old would love to go down in a submarine. So I think that was really the reason.
When TR was young, he was a very sickly child. He suffered from asthma, and therefore he couldn't participate in a lot of athletics or anything, especially early on. His father would not allow him to just sit back and relax, however. He wanted TR to build up his body and his mind. And one means of doing this was installing a gym in the family home in New York, which was almost unheard of in that era. But he was intent on getting TR's body and mind fit. This photograph shows TR with a Boy Scout troop from Lawrence down on the South Shore. And TR was a strong advocate of the strenuous life, as he termed it.
One day, his new personal attendant was moving into the Great Cottage, James Amos, and this is when he was president. And his wife, were moving in together, of course, and she looked around, she wanted some flowers planted in the front yard. So she called, of course, Mrs. Roosevelt, who really was in charge of that. And she said, right away, I'll send someone. So down the road, they look out and they see it's the president with flowers and with the tools to plant and make their flower bed. And they were astonished to find that the president was planting their flowers. Similar situation, a couple of days later, Mrs. Amos called Mrs. Roosevelt and asked to have a certain tree removed away from a window so they could have a better view. And of course, who comes down the road with the axe on his shoulder? Theodore Roosevelt. And not only, of course, to take on, the life that he loved here, but the hard work that came with it, and he felt like that's what made him.
Years ago, I used to take the school children up, like Mr. Stern took them up today from the Roosevelt School. Well, I, years ago, was the teacher who would take the students up. And in 1981, I was about to take my students up there, and I said to my dad, I'm going up to Roosevelt's grave for the birthday, and my kids are coming up. Do you want to come up and see it? And he said, no, I'm a little tired. I won't go up with you today. But I was there. And I said, you were there? He had never told me. I had no idea that he was actually present at Theodore Roosevelt's funeral. He said I was there in my Boy Scout uniform. And so I was so touched to know that at that time. And it was just, so when I go there, I think about that. And, he just had this love of Theodore Roosevelt's philosophy.
TR so loved Sagamore Hill and Oyster Bay that on the very night before he died, he said to Edith, I wonder if you'll ever know how much I love Sagamore Hill. Those were almost his last words.
No birthday party would be complete without singing happy birthday. But let me tell, before we do that, here's what's going to happen. And I want to make sure that my people know this too. You guys can relay this to the house, the Rangers. We're going to sing happy birthday. They're going to serve cake behind me by the west porch. Everybody's invited to have birthday cake. Those people who want to go into the house, we're going to open it for open house. Happy birthday to